Hey, it's Friday. That means it's time for another Leviathan video. You set out. Nah, I'm good. What? You're not gonna capitalize on the FOMO of this limited box set that's already sold out everywhere on the internets? You don't understand how YouTube works now, do you? It's everyone's favorite time of year, forced scarcity on the next big Warhammer box, so we're all hyped up and feel like we need to rush out and pre-order it before we even realize if we want the damn thing or not. Which is then followed by people receiving their boxes and realize half the stuff inside they don't care about, so they sell it for 50 cents on the dollar on eBay. And while I do have plans for a Wild Space Bugs video in the near future, today I wanted to take a break from all this hype and focus on a fun mode of painting that's really excited me lately. Something that I think any one of you can do and will make your painting really look like you're a better painter than you are. Oh, and you get to do this on models you already know you love and probably already own. For me, that mini is this incredibly cute, yet still very deadly rabbit samurai that I 3D printed. You'll find out where to get him and other sick minis like him later. The origin story for this video idea comes from a friend, Vince V. See, recently he was teaching a miniature painting class and I was sitting in, mostly just to heckle him. But he did make a profound statement in that class, and I quote, "Miniature painting is just trying to replicate how light interacts with objects. That's it. That's all we're trying to do." Maybe that wasn't the exact quote. I wasn't really paying attention. And as much as I hate to give Vince a compliment, this was actually a pretty brilliant statement. You see, so often we focus on all these techniques and tricks and tips to try to improve our miniature painting, and we just get overwhelmed instead of focusing on that one thing that matters most. So we're just going to paint light today. We're going to start by slapping on a shadow color from below and to the left of the model with a big brush. Here I'm just using a dark imperial blue. And then I'll move to slapping on the main source of our light. This time a warm magenta from above and to the left. Again, this big fat brush is used. I'm not being exact. I'm not using an airbrush. I'm not worrying about blends or smoothness. What we're doing is a really basic light source sketch. We're determining where our light sources are coming from with some nice fun colors. This way, as we build our way through painting of the model, even if we're doing it quickly, we're going to just focus on making sure our light direction and light color is seen through every color that we paint. I like to use nice saturated colors, nothing with too much white or black pigment in it. The warmth or coldness of light is what brings out the depth and beauty, and that will be shown all the way through to our final piece. And I make sure to put a couple of extra layers of magenta on what's going to be the brightest areas and the areas that I want to get the most attention, and extra dark blue in what would be the most downward facing areas that would catch the most light from that blue reflection that's bouncing off of the ground. And a quick note before we jump into the actual painting, this does not need to be a laborious process. This doesn't need to take us a long time to paint a full figure like this and still make it look great. And that's what I'm going to do today. I only want to spend maybe somewhere between 3 to 5 hours to paint this entire 54mm figure. But by focusing just on the lights, I'm going to come up with a final product that looks like I spent more time than I did. Now, when we get to the actual colors we want to use for the surface, this is where we often get lost, but it actually can be pretty straightforward and simple. We're simply going to start with what our midtone would be for whatever surface we're painting, and we're going to layer up towards our highlights. So pick whatever paint you want the surface to be. For example, I'm starting with a grayish blue for the fur, and I'm eventually going to highlight all the way up to an off-white. But we're going to make one small but very impactful part of these very first base coat layers. We're going to mix in a little bit of magenta for those brighter areas into the base colors, and a little bit of the dark blue into our base colors for those areas that we're going to be in the shadows. One reason why we can paint in this style quickly and make big jumps in the quality of our miniature in a very small amount of time is because we're only worried about understanding and harnessing the light. We don't worry about smoothness at all. We can paint in textures and lines wherever we want, just like I'm doing on this rabbit's fur, or like what we could do with armor with dents and scratches, or something like a scratchy texture on a burlap sack. Now that we sketched out our light and started with our first layers, I'm going to talk about what makes this painting system actually pretty simple, yet really effective. And it's just 2 steps. And in fact, one of them we've already done. We put on a layer, whether it's a mid-tone or building up of highlights. And then the second step is we go back in with a very thinned down, almost wash consistency paint of our light color, and we put that over the entire area that we just built up a layer on. This pulls all that layer back together into our initial tone. It smooths, it softens, and it gets us ready to do it all over again when we go back to step 1. Each time we do another layer to highlight back up, we use a slightly brighter color. Maybe I'll add a little bit of ivory and a little bit more of that gray blue, and I won't add any more of our initial magenta or dark blue color. Also, each time we repeat this step, the wash that we use, we're gonna slightly brighten that color. And how we're gonna do that is, for the magenta, I'm gonna add a little bit of like a bright orange. I want, as we add more layers, to add more brightness and warmth to the color of the light. This way, when we go back and forth from step 1 and step 2, and we're building up our layers, we're actually brightening the light so it looks like those areas are more the focus that the light is hitting. This style of painting is really fun to do when you just want to relax, you don't want to stress too much, because we're never worrying about the time-consuming aspects of miniature painting. We're not worrying about blending. We just narrow in on the area we're highlighting each step, stopping to make sure that we are staying true to the angle and potency of the light that would have on that surface, and then we just repeat until we're done and move on to the next part. And the best part is, these fast layers end up with so much more depth and realism because all of these thin tints of color we're placing in between each layer step do an amazing job of smoothing out all our lines with 0 effort and adding this amazing depth of color through the light. Today's video is brought to us by COBRAMODE Miniatures, creators of today's mini, the Samurai Rabbit. Longtime viewers of the channel will know that COBRAMODE has been with me since the very beginning. And the reason why is not only that they're wonderful people to work with, but also they really put in the effort to put out unique sculpts packed with character and personality. But most of all, COBRAMODE miniatures are fun and relaxing to paint. You'd be surprised how much you're going to enjoy the break from grimdark, hyper-real army painting. No matter where you are in your painting journey, beginner, veteran, or anywhere in between, COBRAMODE gives you the 3D canvas to make something you'll enjoy and be proud of. Thank you, COBRAMODE, for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you check out the link to their Patreon so you can get awesome files every month, as well as their My Mini Factory page, which, if you use code NINJONMODE40, will get you 40% off at checkout. And for the final step of really punching that warm color feel, I go over with a glaze of Casandora Yellow, which is a shade paint. You could use any kind of warm orangish yellow ink you have. I find that these have a little bit more vibrancy and potency, but make sure you thin them down quite a bit because we don't want to blow out all the white looking fur to just kind of look like neon orange. Before I move on to painting the cloth of the rabbit, I wanted to show you the cute little plinth I made while I prime it up with a brush. When I have nice plinths like this one, I don't want to spray the whole thing with primer and cover up the cool look that the base already has. So I just go in with a brush, slap that on and let that dry, and it'll be ready to go by the time we're done with the rest of the model. Whenever I start a new section of the model, I always start by putting down the colors of the areas that will be brightest first. For here, the shoulder up near his head. Then I can kind of fade that out and be less precise as I move away from that main light source. And when we have a powerful light source like this, it's actually going to fade just into our color shadows that we started with, that blue and that magenta. And that will feel natural. As that bright light source is moving further and further away from that surface, it's not picking up any of that color at all. And for the fur, I already established the 3 colors I used to create those glazes over each surface. So I'm just going to use those on every surface because it's the same light that's hitting each surface. So it will influence and impact each surface on the model, whether it's a teal cloth, a bright steel sword, or even the white fur. One thing that really helps me understand how light works on different surfaces under different conditions is actually just real world references. It could be great photos that you take yourself, things you found online. It's not about looking at other people's painted miniatures so much as really understanding how light works in the real world. So everything around us is something we can learn from and apply to our painting. And just like with the fur, we're gonna finish with that same very thin down orangish yellow glaze all over the cloth. So that really ensures that we understand that our eye depicts this as in the same scene under the same light source. When I got to the metallics, I honestly just grabbed whatever paints were close to me at the desk. For the gold, it was kind of a mid-tone warm brown, a nice kind of orangish yellow, and then a really bright off yellow white. This is really good enough because with metallics, they're going to have more influence of the colors that are bouncing off the environment and the light, especially silver. But for these, the most important thing was that we actually keep the darkest darks that we're going to have in portraying metallics as those initial sketch colors that we put into place. That way, we have that little bit of a purple or a blue or magenta that's showing in the darkest shadows, and that will influence our golds and our silvers in a really cool and realistic way. For the metallics, I'm purposely painting them kind of fast and maybe a little sloppy. It's more about understanding that the colors would be there and they'd bounce, and we'd have a couple of very bright reflection lights. But other than that, I don't want these to be the main focus of the piece. When I got to his pants, I actually didn't plan on painting them magenta at all, but I really like this nice little warm color that's peeking out from his knee that's facing forward. So I just kind of accentuated it a little bit without making it too vibrant and over the top magenta color. And again, I'm using that same glazing step to pull everything back together like I did from the very beginning. This allows us to make bold jumps in color and value, and then use those glazes to pull everything back together and reinforce that shadow, that off-color light that's bouncing from below to make it feel like you spent way more time on this refining it than you actually did. The base is very minimalistic, but it should really still feel like it's living in the same environment, so I started the same way I did with the model, by sketching out these dark blues in the areas that will be in the darker area, and the brighter magentas on those sides of the rocks that would be facing the front, where I'm going to place the mini at the end. I define a few small details in some grays on the edges of the stone path that'll be towards the front of the base. This way we can see that there's something there, some level of interest, but we don't make it go so bright or so over detailed that it detracts from the model. Painting in this style was so much fun. I got to knock out a model I was looking forward to painting in under 4 hours. Also, I really feel like every time I practice understanding and painting light and how light works on a model, I get a little bit better at it and I understand it a little bit more, which helps me for the next model. And to reiterate, this is not a style that's just for a very experienced painter or someone that is just trying to paint at a very high level or for competition. You could do this literally on any model. You could do an entire army in this style, and each model you paint will help you understand how light works even better, and it will overall improve your painting for everything you do. Thanks for hanging out today all the way to the end of the video. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers, and it would mean a lot if you're with me as we hit that milestone. Also, a massive thank you to my patrons. It's because of your cool ideas and your support that I get to paint things that I really wanted to paint in styles I want to paint in, instead of just vomiting up another video about the most recent Warhammer release. Not that I don't love painting Warhammer. I do, but it just feels good that y'all have my back. I'm gonna see you back here again next week for another video, and sometime between now and then, make sure you find time in your day to slay the gray. Hey, everybody knows best way to beat an army of space crawdads is you just put them in a pot of boiling water. Maybe throw in some potatoes and some corn in there. Some Old Bay seasoning. You never know what hit them. Line,